is 1965, Oak Island, Nova Scotia. It is a humid, suffocating summer night. Robert Ristall, a former circus performer, and his 8-year-old son, Robert Jr., are working at the bottom of a 27-foot shaft, a place they've nicknamed Borehole 10X. They are treasure hunters, lured here by a 170-year-old legend. They are not the first. They will not be the last. Suddenly, the pump at the surface sputters and dies. The air in the shaft grows heavy. Robert Jr. feels his father slump beside him, overcome by an invisible poison. He scrambles up the ladder, gasping, "I'm getting out." He collapses, falling back into the darkness. On the surface, panic. Two of their crew, Carl Grazer and Cyril Hiltz, rush down into the shaft to help. They are swallowed by the same silent killer. A fourth man, Andy DeMilo, descends, only to be overcome as well. When rescuers finally arrive, it is a scene of unimaginable horror. 4 men, Robert Ristall, his son, and 2 of his partners are dead at the bottom of a muddy hole. They did not die from a cave-in. They died from hydrogen sulfide gas, the breath of a tomb. They are the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th men to die searching for what lies beneath Oak Island. This was not a discovery, it was a sacrifice. It cemented a local legend, a prophecy whispered for a century. 7 must die before the treasure will be found. This is the question that has haunted this small, teardrop-shaped island for 230 years. What is buried here, so deep, so ingeniously protected by a labyrinth of flood tunnels and poison gas, that is worth generations of human obsession? What is worth dying for in the mud of Nova Scotia? To understand the darkness of Borehole 10X, we must rewind the clock. Back to the beginning, back to a summer day in 1795, and 3 boys who just wanted to dig a hole. The story, like all great legends, begins simply. In 1795, a 16-year-old named Daniel McGinnis, rowing to the island, notices something strange. A small circular depression in the ground under an old oak tree. From a thick, severed branch above, it hung a tackle block and pulley, ancient and rotted. This was a marker. He returned with 2 friends, John Smith and Anthony Vaughn. They began to dig. What they found was not a natural pit. It was a man-made shaft. 2 feet down, they hit a layer of flagstones. 10 feet down, a platform of solid oak logs. 10 feet further, another layer. And 10 feet below that, another. They were digging into a structure, a buried tower, built in reverse. They reached 30 feet, but they were 3 teenage boys, and this was not a treasure chest. This was an engineering project. They gave up, but the story was just beginning. Years passed. In 1804, they returned, this time with money. They formed the Oslo Company, and the true excavation began. This time, they pushed past the 30-foot mark. At 40 feet, another oak platform. At 50, another, 60, 70, 80. And then, at 90 feet, they hit something different. Not logs, but a single, massive, flat stone, 3 feet long, etched with a cryptic geometric script. This was the 90-foot stone. The men, unable to read the cipher, hauled it out. That night, they celebrated. They believed 1 layer away from the treasure. The next morning, they returned to the pit. It was filled almost to the top, with 60 feet of rushing, frigid seawater. They had not just been digging, they had been watched. They had been anticipated. In their final, triumphant dig, they had breached the last line of defense. They had sprung a trap. The shaft was connected to the ocean itself. This revelation in 1804 is the heart of the Oak Island mystery. This was not a pit, it was a machine. A sophisticated hydraulic booby trap designed centuries earlier to use the full crushing power of the Atlantic Ocean as its guardian. This discovery did not end the hunt. It started it. For the next 200 years, generation after generation would arrive, each armed with more money, more technology, and more arrogance than the last. The Truro Company, the Oak Island Association. Each one tried to defeat the water. They tried to build cofferdams. They tried to dig parallel shafts, to intercept the treasure room from the side. But every time they got close, the moment their drills hit something, a chest, wood, metal, the booby trap would activate, a new tunnel would collapse, and the sea would rush in, claiming the whole. The 19th century was a catalog of glorious, expensive failure. They brought in steam-powered pumps. The pumps were overwhelmed. They brought in massive drills. The drills broke. In 1861, in a desperate attempt, a drill bit brought up a tantalizing, horrifying clue. 3 small, gold links from an ancient, handmade chain. The searchers were not just fighting a pit, they were fighting a genius. They discovered that the machine was not just one tunnel, it was a system. The original builders had excavated 2 box drains, or flood tunnels, from the ocean at Smith's Cove. These drains, more than 500 feet long, ran underground, sloping gently down to the money pit. They were filled with layers of charcoal, rocks, and, most bizarrely, tons of coconut fiber. Coconut. In Nova Scotia, this was the booby trap. A man-made beach designed to act as a giant, perfect sponge, feeding seawater into the pit forever. This is the central, non-negotiable fact of Oak Island. Someone, hundreds of years ago, possessed the engineering skill, the manpower, and the motive to build a subterranean fortress, a hydraulic death trap, on a tiny island in the North Atlantic, just to hide something. The 90-foot stone was later translated by a local professor. The cipher, he claimed, read, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds lie buried. That, it turned SG out, was a lie. The translation was a fake, a 19th century publicity stunt to raise more money. But the pit was real. The flood tunnels are real. The coconut fiber is real. The bodies are real. This leaves us with the ultimate question. Who had this kind of power? This leads us to the heart of the investigation, a conflict of theories that has raged for a century. The first and most romantic theory, the pirate horde. This is the simplest explanation. The island, after all, is in the heart of the old pirate alley. The culprit, this theory posits, is none other than Captain William Kidd. The evidence is circumstantial, but compelling. Legend states that Kidd, before he was hanged in London in 1701, boasted that he had buried a treasure so vast, it would take 100 men to retrieve it. He claimed it was so well hidden, it would never be found. Does this sound like a shallow chest in the sand, or a 150-foot water-trap vault? This theory is appealing. It is the story that started the hunt. And yet, it has one massive, glaring flaw: engineering. A pirate crew, however large, was a chaotic temporary organization. They were sailors, not hydraulic engineers. They did not build for centuries. They built for next year. The sheer scale of the money pit, the precision of the flood tunnels, the tons of imported coconut fiber, the 10-foot deep log platforms is so far beyond the logistical and intellectual capacity of any known pirate crew. It borders on the absurd. Pirates bury treasure to get it later. This pit was built so that no one would ever get it. This glaring flaw leads to the second, and far more complex, theory: the lost hoard of the Knights Templar. This is the theory that the treasure is not gold, but something holy. This theory argues that the money pit is the last great vault of the Knights Templar. The timeline is perfect. In 1307, when the King of France tried to arrest the Templars and seize their vast, legendary treasure, they vanished. Their fleet, their gold, their archives, and, some say, their sacred relics, the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, all disappeared. This theory posits that the Templars, the most powerful engineering and banking force of the Middle Ages, executed one final, brilliant plan. They sailed west, centuries before Columbus, and used their military engineering skills to build the ultimate sacred vault, far from the greed of European kings. The evidence is what separates Oak Island from a simple treasure hunt. On the island, searchers have found strange boulder carvings, including a cross. They have found a lead, pewter cross, of a design consistent with the Templar order. Most importantly, the engineering fits. Who could build a hydraulic booby trap? The same men who built the castles and cathedrals of Europe. And yet, this theory is also a leap of faith. The cross, while old, cannot be definitively dated. The connection is one of conjecture. It is a brilliant, intoxicating story. but it remains just that, a story. There is no document, no map, no proof that a Templar ship ever crossed the Atlantic. This leaves a third and perhaps more plausible theory. It is not pirates, it is not knights, it is a state secret. This theory argues the pit is not a treasure vault, but a treasury. A military bank. Look at the history. Nova Scotia, New Scotland, was the most contested piece of land in North America, fought over by the French and the British. This theory posits the pit was built by one of them. Perhaps it was the French, who in the 1,750 seconds were about to lose their great fortress of Louisbourg to the British. They needed to hide their massive military payroll. So, a team of French Royal Engineers, using slave labor, constructed the pit, a perfect, secure vault. This theory explains everything. It explains the high-level engineering. It explains the massive, organized manpower. It explains the coconut fiber, which was not from coconuts, but was common dunnage used to pack and ship cargo. And it explains the secrecy. It was a military operation. But it too has a flaw. If it was a military treasury, there would be records. A payroll, an engineering plan, a coded map, somewhere in the archives of Paris or London, and there is nothing. A silence as complete and as deep as the pit itself. And so, we are left where we began. In the dark, for 230 years, we have been digging. We have brought steam engines, dynamite, multinational corporations, and now high-definition television cameras. The island is no longer a pristine wilderness. It is a wound, a pockmarked industrial site, scarred by the obsession of generations. And what have we found? We have found wood, we have found coconut fiber, we have found scraps of parchment, old tools, and pottery. We have found the evidence of a great work, but we have never found the object of that work. 6 men have died. The prophecy says 7. The mystery of Oak Island is no longer about what lies at the bottom of a hole. It has become a reflection of the searcher. We see what we want to see. The pirate lover sees a chest of gold. The religious scholar sees the Holy Grail. The engineer sees a military vault. But what if, after 230 years, the truth is the most terrible one of all? What if there is nothing? What if the 19th century 90-foot stone was not the only fake? What if the pit itself is a fraud? A treasure narrative invented by the original landowners to sell shares in a company, a story that grew and fed on itself and on the lives of men like Robert Restall? Or perhaps there was a treasure, and it is long gone, taken by the original builders, or by a secret fourth group who knew how to bypass the traps and left the machine on, forever guarding an empty room. The pit has become a mirror for our own greed, our own faith, our own desire for history to be more romantic than it is. It is the perfect mystery because it is, perhaps, bottomless. The island is not a treasure vault. It is a trap for the human imagination. And it is a trap that to this day has never been sprung.